Series. From Royal Stadium in Kansas City, Game 6, the St. Louis Cardinals and the Kansas City Royals. In Game 5, Thursday night in St. Louis, the Royals took a 2-1 lead on this very close play at home plate. Jim Sundberg escaping the tag of Tom Nieto. And before the inning was over, Willie Wilson had driven in 2 more with his triple to the gap in right center. KC led 4-1. Meanwhile, Danny Jackson was brilliant. Another great pitching performance for the Royals. They won the game 6-1. Cards lead the series 3-2 as the teams come back west. Folks, the weather on the beach on Maui can't be a whole lot better than it is in late October in Kansas City. Yesterday in the mid-70s, today about 70, tonight in the 60s. Just gorgeous as we get set for Game 6. Hi again, everyone. I'm Al Michaels. Everybody knows the story. The Cardinals have to win 1. The Royals have to win 2 to take home the World Championship. Kansas City staying alive and a very confident lot as they come back home. Now, if Kansas City wins tonight, it sets up a dream matchup tomorrow. Brett Saberhagen would be on the mound for Kansas City, and John Tudor would pitch for St. Louis. But first things first, tonight it's Lee Brandt against Danny Cox. And in retrospect, let's go back to the game in St. Louis on Thursday night, Game 5, and a tremendous performance sort of lost in this shuffle. Todd Worrell started the season in the minor leagues at Louisville under Jim Fregosi as a starting pitcher. They converted him in mid-year to the bullpen, and here he is, having been called up in late August, the main man out of the bullpen now for the Cardinals, and 6 consecutive strikeouts in Game 5 Thursday night. Worrell came in to pitch in the 6th inning. The first man he faced was Buddy Biancalana. Then he struck Danny Jackson out. No surprise there. But then he really got it cranked up. Went to the top of the order and fanned Lonnie Smith to retire the side, and then began the 7th inning by striking out Willie Wilson. So that made it 4 in a row. And then George Brett for number 5, and then into the record books with number 6 against Frank White. So Todd Worrell with 2 perfect innings, 6 strikeouts. I spoke with him earlier. Todd, your reflections, reaction now as to what you did the other night when you put your name in the record book.
Well, I'll tell you, Al, I didn't know at the time what I had done. And I came off the field and went in the locker room after I was done pitching my 2 innings. And one of the guys in the locker room came up to me when I was changing my top and said, "Hey, you know, congratulations." And I said, "For what?" You know, because we had in the game, our score hadn't changed any in the game. We were still behind 4-1. And he said, "You know, your 6 consecutive strikeouts tied a World Series record." And I was really ecstatic about it after you told me.
How do you view the irony of starting the season as a starting pitcher in the minor leagues and ending it as the main man out of the bullpen in the World Series?
Well, I guess I kind of look at it as really finding my niche in the game. I don't really count myself as a failure as a starter because I had some great games as a starter. I just don't think I was consistent enough to pitch on the big league level as a starter. And you know, I think in this game you find things that really fit your character, your style of pitching, and relief has done that for me, and I've really fit in well to a groove. I haven't had much of an adjustment, and it's been fun for me. It's made me aggressive on the mound, and it's just I look back on it and it's almost like a dreamer, and you know, something you wouldn't expect. It just happened for me, and it fit real well with my style of pitching.
Probably about time to start calling him Goose Worrell. It may come down to him at the end. We'll have Reggie Jackson coming up when we come back to KC. Welcome to Kansas City for Game 6 of the 1985 World Series, and I think the Kansas City Royals have to feel pretty comfortable. Think about this. This is the 5th time in the last 2 weeks the Royals have come to a ballpark, and if they had lost, that would be the end of the season. They were down 3-1 to Toronto, came back to win the League Championship Series, and kept the World Series alive with a victory. So, in effect, I suppose you could say they have saved 4 match points already in 1985. They'll try for a 5th and send it to a 7th game tomorrow. On the subject of pitching, hard luck Charlie Leibrandt goes to the mound. You remember last Sunday night he lost Game 2 with that 4-run Cardinal rally in the ninth inning. It goes all the way back, in fact, to the playoffs last year when he pitched brilliantly against Detroit in Game 3, only to lose 1-0. And there was also a very heartbreaking loss in Game 4 of the American League Championship Series 2 weeks ago tonight when he led Toronto 1-0 going into the ninth inning and lost that one. Here's his reflections on that game.
That was very frustrating. I thought that was probably the worst defeat I'd ever had until the game the other night, Game 2. You know, to go into the ninth inning with a 1-0 lead, and it was the same type of situation. We went down 3-1, and at the time I thought it was just the end of the world. It really crushed me, and then I found out that there are tougher losses still yet ahead, and losing game number 2 of the World Series was awfully tough. You know, I don't know. Sometimes things aren't meant to be. It's hard to say, but you know, I think my luck's due to change.
Leibrandt had a shutout with 2 out of the ninth inning, and Willie McGee at second base when Jack Clark singled to left field. McGee came in to score, but it was still 2-1 Royals with a tying run at first base. Then Tito Landrum, the batter. This soft fly ball off the end of the bat fell for a double, putting runners at second and third. I asked Leibrandt if he expected to come out at this point.
Well, no, I thought I really had pretty good success and pretty good stuff most of the night. Even into the ninth inning, I thought my stuff was still good. I just couldn't get that last out. The Landrum looped the ball down the right field line. It was a little tough luck, just a couple of feet inside the line. Clark really didn't hit his ball too hard. It had eyes between short and third, so I think Dick was still thinking along the lines that I still had pretty good stuff. I just couldn't make that key pitch to get us out of there.
After Leibrandt walked Cedeno to load the bases, this double to left field by Terry Pendleton sent 3 Cardinals home, gave St. Louis a 4-2 victory. And I asked Leibrandt if there'd be any carryover effect tonight.
Well, it's an awful frustrating loss. To pitch 8 2/3 innings, have a 2-0 lead with 2 outs, and not be able to get that third out is awfully frustrating. But I've been able to put that behind me right now. I'm going to try to go out tonight and pitch the best ball game I can. Put that behind me, not think about it. Just hopefully we'll play a good ball game, score some runs, and things will turn out a little bit different for me.
Jim Palmer joining us now. That's very much what you'd expect Leibrandt to say. Can a pitcher really do that, though?
I don't think you can put the kind of games that he's pitched out of your mind. I think the key point he made was, let's score some runs. But if he gets into the late innings with a 1-run lead, he's probably going to do a little bit of thinking about what happened in his last 2 starts. I think the thing that concerns me is the fact that he did throw about 140 pitches in that ball game, and he is a control pitcher, and if he's not sharp, he might have some problems. We've seen the St. Louis bullpen, and they've done a fantastic job. I think the big point to me tonight, as we said before Game 5, is Hauser has to go with his whole bullpen. And if you get into the late innings, to whom is Dick Hauser going to go to? Who is he going to really bring in to be the key man? We'll just kind of have to wait and see.
Well, let me turn now to Tim McCarver and talk about the other pitcher, Danny Cox, and you keep hearing a lot of whispering about Cox's elbow. What do you know?
Well, Cardinal trainer Gene Gieselman told us before the ball game tonight that in 1982, Danny Cox, a bone spur, was discovered in the right elbow of Danny Cox as the Cardinals x-ray their pitchers every spring. Well, they x-rayed Danny Cox again this spring, and they found the same bone spur, but it's more of an irritation than it is an injury. However, Danny Cox's best pitch is a slider, and when a pitcher throws a slider, there is this type of movement with the hand, and that causes a lot of stress and strain on the elbow. So consequently, Danny Cox going into tonight's ball game could be bothered by that sore elbow, and if he is bothered by it, then his slider, his most effective pitch, won't be used. And I find that very disturbing if I were the Cardinal manager, Whitey Herzog.
So it's a rematch of Game 2, Leibrandt against Cox, as we get set for Game 6. And let's join Jack Layton again.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time we would like to direct your attention to the Royals dugout area. Baseball is proud to have with us, throwing out the first ball for tonight's World Series game, America's first woman in space. She is accompanied tonight by her husband, Steve Hawley of Salina, Kansas, also an astronaut who will make his first trip into space this winter. How about a big welcome for astronaut Sally Ride? Sally, we await your first hit. Thank you, Sally. We are honored to have you with us tonight.
Danny Cox finished warming up. He makes his way in. Charlie Leibrandt to work for the Royals. Game 6 of the World Series coming right up. Ozzie Smith, who had a lot of experience leading off when he was the San Diego shortstop, is on top tonight, and Willie McGee is back where he was for most of the regular year in the second spot. Tom Herr bats third as usual. Jack Clark is the Cardinal cleanup hitter. And against the lefty Leibrandt, it's Tito Landrum hitting fifth. Then a flip-flop. Terry Pendleton goes from 7 to 6, and Cesar Cedeno drops to number 7 in the order. Darrell Forder is the Cardinal catcher, and on the mound, Danny Cox. And for the Kansas City Royals defensively, it's Steve Balboni at first base, still trying to get untracked at the plate. The second baseman is Frank White, big hero in Game 3. Buddy Biancalana, making a big name for himself in the World Series. The shortstop, and George Brett is at third, and he says he's fine. In the outfield, Lonnie Smith in left, and in center field, Willie Wilson, who made that scintillating catch in St. Louis. On a ball over his head, Pat Sheridan starting in right field with the right-hander working for St. Louis. Jim Sundberg, very instrumental in the victory for KC the other night, scoring the go-ahead run. And Charlie Leibrandt, somehow keeping his wits about him. A very friendly, good guy, and a fellow who, for the first time in his career the other night, did not come out to face reporters. He said it was simply a little too much. He's always come out. He has always been very accessible and very polite, and did attend a press conference yesterday. Said that was just a little bit too much. So Jim Quick is back at the plate, National League umpire tonight. Denkinger at first, Williams at second, McKean at third, Engel down the line in left, and Shulock down the line in right. Ozzie Smith to lead things off, and Whitey Herzog is the man who has made the lineup change tonight. Willie McGee has been leading off throughout the World Series in the absence of Vince Coleman. But McGee drops to 2, and Smith takes low, ball 1. There is Vince Coleman, who is naturally out, as you know. 6 weeks rest prescribed for him because of that incident with a tarpaulin. The 1-0 pitch is fouled back, and it's 1-1. Funny here, Tim, that all of the talk about the Royals not scoring and what's Hauser going to do with his lineup, and here's Herzog who makes the switch.
Yeah, Ozzie Smith, a bit of a problem, I think, batting in that number 2 hole, 1 for 16, and kind of unusual that Whitey would move him into the number 1 hole.
Herzog was saying before the game that Smith should be comfortable there with a lot of experience when he was a Padre, and as you look at it, batting in this spot for the first time since 1983. McGee is probably more comfortable hitting second. Brett knocks it down, recovers, throws, and still gets him for the out. So he hit it hard enough for George to be able to make the play. And Smith is 1 for 17.
Well, George gets in front of the ball. If you do get in front of the ball, you still know you have enough time if you make a good throw. There you see the throw by a step.
1 out with the bases empty, and Willie McGee, who hit second during the regular season much of the year, had been moved because of the Coleman injury into the number 1 spot. And McGee quietly having a decent series, 7 for 19. Half swing strike, and the count is 0-1.
Seemed like a relatively easy play for Brett, but a lot of third basemen, if they back up, what they do is to take it off the chest instead of being in front of the ball. Caroms off to left and right. If you keep the ball in front of you at third and you have any kind of arm at all, you have momentum going towards first base, and it makes the play a lot easier.
Crowd, some of the crowd anyway, about 50 or 100 chanting Charlie, Charlie, trying to get the rest of them stirred up, and the count 1-2.
Talking to pitching coach Gary Blaylock, and I said, well, what's velocity on Leibrandt's fastball? He said, around average, around 85 miles per hour. But what makes it really a better than average fastball. He has a great changeup, and it's something that he came up with in winter ball of 1983. He was really much a kind of a journeyman pitcher. He pitched in the National League a couple of years, never overpowering, never effective. Came up with a changeup, and it made his fastball look about 3 feet longer.
In the air to center field, and an easy play. Willie Wilson. 2 out, bases empty, and Tommy Herr, the batter. It's an expectant crowd. You can really feel it. They felt that once they could get the series back to Kansas City, the fans and the players alike, that things would swing over to the Royals side. And who's to dispute it right now?
We mentioned the other night also that the Cardinals had not been swept at home all season. And realistically, Kansas City went to St. Louis and did what they wanted to do. Naturally, you'll take 3 in a row, but 2 out of 3 is the next best thing.
Tommy Herr, who has not driven in a run in this World Series in 5 games after driving in 110 during the regular season. Two out, no one on. 1-1 the count. Herr hit .282 right-handed this year. He was better the other way at .313.
When you talk about Tommy Herr, you're talking about discipline, and that's the one thing I think that has affected him. We talked about the scattering reports. I don't believe he really knows the Kansas City pitchers, and then when you couple with that, but they have outstanding ability.
An appropriate sign for Game 6.
And we'll be talking all night about Lee Brandt staying out of the middle of the plate. If you go back and look at this series, the 2 pitchers that have had trouble are Bob Forsch and Joaquin Andujar. All the other pitchers have stayed really away from the center of the plate. And you know, Tim, if you're catching a ball game and your pitcher's in the middle of the plate, even if you might be able to be a tip-top Worrell for maybe an inning or 2, but over the long haul, you better stay on the corners.
And Herr strikes out. So a most promising beginning for the Royals as Lee Brandt sets them down in order. And at the end of the half inning in Game 6 at Royal Stadium, Cards nothing. Royals coming up. For the Royals tonight, Dick Hauser will play the exact hand that won Game 5. Lonnie Smith will lead things off. And then Willie Wilson, who had a key triple the other night, is in center field batting second. George Brett, as usual, none the worse for wear, batting third. Frank White, once more the cleanup hitter. Pat Sheridan, slumping in this series, in right field batting fifth. Steve Balboni still trying to get on track. The catcher, Jim Sundberg, bats number 7. Buddy Biancalana having a good series, hitting 8th. And on the mound, Charlie Lee Brandt. Cardinals defensively, the outfield of Tito Landrum, Willie McGee, and Cesar Cedeno, with Pendleton, Smith, Herr, and Clark in the infield. Darrell Porter gets the start. He caught the first 3 games, and then Tom Nieto caught 2. And Danny Cox on the mound. Cox, the 3rd winningest pitcher, and you don't often see an 18-game winner have 2 fellas win more on the same staff, but that was the story with John Tudor and Joaquin Andujar. And ironically, it is Andujar who is one of the long men tonight. He's out of the rotation.
Off for the Royals.
Talked about the balance of this team. Not only do they have a great team balance offensively and defensively, but in the pitching, they have a great bullpen. We talked about the 5 guys to do the job out there. If you're Whitey Herzog, you want to have a deep staff. It's nice to have Andujar with 21 wins and Tudor with 21 wins, and also having a guy like Cox that pitches a lot of innings and has a low earned run average.
Up high to Lonnie Smith. 1-0 is Smith, Wilson, and Brett in the bottom of the 1st inning. Just a gorgeous night. Temperature in the 60s, light breeze, just a sweater necessary. And a light one at that. 1-1 the count.
Danny Cox, a dart thrower. He has to be very fine. Works the inside part of the plate and the outside part of the plate. He's got a good straight change, but his best pitch is his slider. And as we said in the opening, it'll be interesting to see if that elbow's going to be irritated. And there was the slider right there.
2-1 the count.
It's also the kind of injury when you, which my elbow always seemed to hurt. the longer you pitch, the more it hurts, because the aggravation just builds up. It's a type of pitch that you might go 4 or 5 innings. And when I talked to Danny a couple of days ago, he said, number one, it gets better with more rest, which he's had, which is probably why we didn't see him pitching on Thursday night. And number two, as the game goes along, it gets a little bit sore.
3-2 the count. Off-balance follow-through. Is that indicative of anything to you, Tim?
Well, if I were a pitcher, I would never have been concerned about the follow-through. It's how you deliver the ball to the plate. Some of the greatest pitchers that have ever pitched had the worst follow-throughs. Bob Gibson was one of them.
I was thinking about that only as a possible suggestion of, is he trying to do something maybe a little differently because the elbow could be bothering him? And he winds up off balance. Thought out of left field, but
I would think, though, Al, of course, I pitched on this mound many times. This is a mound that is a lot usually flatter when you get out there than the warm-up mound. Therefore, sometimes it takes a while to adjust.
And that's ripped fair down the line and into the left field corner. Lonnie Smith can run, and he has an easy double.
Well, this was a slider, but it was not a quality slider. Kind of hung right over the plate, and Lonnie Smith does with it what a lot of hitters will do, and that slider does not break. A rope down the left field line, and Lonnie has the Royals with a chance to score some runs here in the first inning.
Now, one thing Smith did in one of the league championship series games is start the first inning with a double, and the next thing you know, he stole third, so that Wilson wouldn't have to think about only advancing him, but scoring him.
Well, Darrell Porter does not have a good throwing arm. One thing Kansas City has been throughout the series, been very aggressive on the base runners. Excuse me, the base pass. Actually, sometimes they run themselves right out of some innings.
Smith cheating over a little bit toward the bag at second to keep Lonnie Smith close. And it's up high. Willie Wilson has more hits than anybody in the series thus far, a total of 8, batting .364.
This is a very difficult situation for the third baseman. He's got speed to his left on second and speed at the plate.
1-2 on Willie Wilson.
Of course, there are 2 strikes right now, and he doesn't really have to worry about the bunt, so he'll drop back a couple of steps, as you see Terry Pendleton do. But up to 2 strikes, if you're concerned about the bunt and you move in thinking the hitter will bunt the ball, then to Lonnie Smith, who's on second base, if he steals, there's not a chance for him to get back to third, and that's what happened to Garth Orge of the Toronto Blue Jays when Smith took off.
High. It becomes very important for Wilson to get on for the Royals. If he doesn't, you leave first base vacant, and even though you might not walk Brett intentionally, you'll probably pitch around him, which is tougher to do when first base is occupied. And Wilson grounds it down to her at second. He advances the runner. Smith moves up 90 feet, and here comes Brett. The other night, you all recall this, the play that will live in our memory banks for a while. Sliding into the dugout, the great save by Lee May, and also Mike Jones, a pitcher, getting partial credit for it as well. And Brett, just fine, his backing signaled in the only other at-bat he had that night following the incident. Had a little blurry vision after the game. They took him out defensively in the 9th inning and inserted Greg Pryor, but he says he's fine. No aches, no pains. Sees things perfectly. 0-1 the count.
Kidding with Lee May, the batting instructor, I said, Lee, I can see that if you're going to try to save one hitter on your team, it might be George Brett.
When you're the batting coach, that's got to be your top priority.
Exactly.
It's a bit of a surprise why Whitey Herzog's pitching to George Brett. If you remember back in Game 3,
He walked Brett with Willie Wilson at second base in the first inning.
And the count 1-2.
Well, he really may not be pitching to him. That ball, and we talked about this with Cox 93 miles per hour on the radar gun, is that Will George, when he knows he's probably not going to get too many good pitches to hit, expand the strike zone. Right there, you saw him swinging a ball over his head.
2-2.
There's a difference, however, when you pitch around a hitter with a runner at third base as opposed to pitching around a hitter with a runner at second base. If you make a wild pitch or a pass ball with a guy on second, he goes to third. Do it with Smith at third, and he scores.
Infield is playing back. And the 2-2 pitch is strike 3 called. Jim Quick, National League umpire, bringing out Brett.
Well, we've talked about how the strike zone has come down. Right here, ball does tail back, ends up almost inside middle. I think George Brett thought the ball was high.
Now,
this year, yes. You used to get that pitch all the time. Very rarely do you get that pitch.
and the call from a National League umpire. So Brett strikes out, 2 down. Lonnie Smith, the runner, at third. No score, bottom of the first inning. And White at the plate. In there, 0-1. White has more RBIs than anybody else in the series, a total of 5. He also has 3 doubles. He was the big star in Game 3 when the Royals won 6-1 with a double and a home run and 3 RBIs. 1-1 the count.
To me, it's always interesting, and Tim, you caught for eons, but it's amazing, even though you do have the inside protector, each umpire's strike zone does differ.
No appeal, or they don't get the appeal from Don Dinkinger. 2-1 the count.
Well, you see the umpire working the slot. That means the slot between the hitter and the catcher. Frank White very close to going around, but first base umpire Don Dinkinger says no, sir.
Lonnie Smith at third, 2 out. And the 2-1 to White is grounded toward the hole. Ozzie Smith up with it and gets him. A leadoff double by Lonnie Smith is wasted. No score after 1. Clark, 5 hits in 17 trips. Remember, had the rib injury, which shelved him for the better part of 6 weeks down the stretch. Then the dramatic home run to beat the Dodgers in the 9th inning. And 5 for 17 in the World Series. Doesn't get cheated very often. 0-1. The count.
You remember the last time Lee Brandt faced Jack Clark, he threw him 4 pitches, 3 just missed the outside corner, and he got a single to drive in the first run of the game last Sunday night.
Popped up. That's Brett. And that's 4 in a row retired by Lee Brandt. And I guess, what is it, the 26th of October? Not that many nights away. Our handheld camera outside the ballpark. Those balloons, I believe, across the embankment on the edge of I-70, and a look into this gorgeous facility. Royal Stadium, Kansas City, a ballpark that opened in 1973. Toward the gap in right center and shallow, but here comes Sheridan to make the catch as Landrum hits one that hangs. 2 down with the bases empty as Tito goes back and Pendleton comes up.
Well, once again, they were able to get the ball in on Landrum. Danny Jackson did a great job the other night. He did get a hit on an infield hit, but he stayed on the inside part of the plate, and when they've gone away from Landrum, he's just been very effective.
Herzog making the switch tonight at the top of the order, and also what he's done is move Pendleton from 7 to 6. And Cedeno, as you see Whitey in the dugout, Cedeno dropping from 6 to 7. Little squibber, and Leibrandt lets Brett take care of it, and he does. 2 perfect innings for the Royals left-hander. No score after 1.5 in Game 6. Bottom of the 2nd inning. Al Michaels, Jim Palmer, Tim McCarver with you from Kansas City. Game 6, no score, and Pat Sheridan to lead things off. Then Steve Balboni and Jim Sundberg. Pat Sheridan, 3 for 15, but the way he's been swinging, even 200 sounds high. 1-0 the count. And a delayed call and a strike called by Jim Quick on a pitch that he contends got the outside corner. The way Quick called that pitch, you could tell that even he wasn't sure.
He did not call it quickly, did he?
No, he didn't. Or emphatically. And that's a strike. And the count is 0-2.
One of those examples, if you're a pitcher and you can throw the ball where the catcher is sitting and hit the glove, the catcher sometimes can cheat by an inch or 2, and you'll get an occasional strike.
And down goes Sheridan. So he continues to look very bad at the plate. And Balboni coming up.
Well, this is just a matter of getting overmatched. Ball right on the corner. You see it run away, 92 miles per hour. It's kind of answering some of our questions about whether his arm is bothering him.
He appears to, after that leadoff double by Smith. He gets Wilson on a grounder, strikes Brett out, gets White on a grounder, and strikes Sheridan out. 1 out. Here's Balboni, who takes inside, ball 1.
What happened in that leadoff double, Al, you hear a lot of people that talk about baseball talk about bat speed. If you're throwing 93 miles per hour and you throw a slider that's about in the 80s, and you throw it in the middle of the plate, you allow the batter to get the bat head out. That's exactly what happened with Lonnie Smith. You throw a fastball right by him, next pitch is in the middle of the plate. Instead of being late, it's a double into the corner.
2-0, and Balboni rips it just foul. He's still looking for his first extra base hit in postseason action. It's funny, if you do it in the regular season, you can kind of sneak your way through a slump, and then all of a sudden people read the averages maybe every Sunday in the paper, and they say, well, that's not too bad, he's doing all right. But when you do it on national television for a fortnight, you do make an impression on people. 2-2.
I don't want to sound like Johnny Mathis, but chances are when he does get a hold of one, it's going to go a long way.
He's just hoping it's not till the 12th of never before it happens, right?
And you guys are going to break into a duet when he does now. 2-2 to Balboni is fouled away. We'll even get the organist in St. Louis to back us up, right? Since it played throughout the entire 3 games at Busch Stadium.
Well, you're still humming that one catchy tune.
Oh, the old ditty. Full count now on Balboni, 3-2.
You can just see that wagon going over George Toma, the groundkeeper here in Kansas City's mound, like it did in Kansas City, or excuse me, in St. Louis. He'd be going berserk.
3-2 pitch is hit into left center for a base hit. So Balboni is on, and Sundberg will come up. Man on with 1 out. Jim referring to George Toma, the groundskeeper here, as you watch Balboni's base hit.
3-2 slider. Not a bad pitch, but Balboni pretty strong, as we've been talking about, and he just kind of muscles it into center field.
In St. Louis, Jim talking about the fact that Mr. Busch would come out with the beer wagon pulled by the Clydesdales each night before the game. We showed you a brief bit of tape before Game 3, and the horses would prance around the entire playing surface, including the infield, which led to Herzog's remark the other night, as Sundberg takes a strike, that the Clydesdales spent more time at second base than the Cardinals.
That was a great line.
Sundberg fouls it away, and the count, no balls and 2 strikes. Jim Sundberg, solid and steady and dependable, and a key figure the other night. 1-2. Not only did he score and break a 1-1 tie, but it was the kind of play you almost had to be in the ballpark to appreciate when he made the catch on that high pop foul by Jack Clark. Two.
That's to give him a lot of credit. A real close play that John Shulock, the umpire, called it home. Still don't know if he was safe or out, even though he did call him safe. A great slide. Just got in with his hand.
And strike 3, and again Quick hesitating and then making the call.
Well, Al, I think when a pitch fools a hitter, and I'm really not taking up for Quick. Now watch the delayed call right there. But when it fools a hitter, you saw Sundberg go back. Well, it also stands to reason that it would fool the umpire too, because after all, the catcher between the 3 of them is the only guy who knows what's coming.
Did you ever think about turning around when an umpire's having a bad night and telling him what's coming, just to help him out?
Biancalana grounds it. Look at Ozzie Smith for the force. A great play for anybody else. A typical play for the Wizards.
The dive by Ozzie. This ball's hit sharply by Buddy Biancalana. We saw Biancalana do it on Ozzie Smith the other night. Ozzie regains his balance on his knees. A toss to her to do it.
Extra, read all about it. I talked to Kansas City pitcher Brett Saberhagen earlier.
All right, let's hear it straight from the man's mouth. Give us the report as to what took place at 11:38 this morning.
We had my wife Janine had a baby boy, 9 pounds 3 ounces, 20 inches long and a quarter inch, and she's doing great. The baby's doing fine. Yeah, I can't believe how big it is.
He had all the figures, the whole thing, everything but the baby's ERA, and our congratulations to the Saberhagens. 1-0 the count. Be a great story for the Saberhagen baby to be told down the line, how so many millions of people each night had to be informed as to the progress of Janine, who's doing perfect. Cedeno is at the plate with the 3rd inning commencing. Cedeno, Horner, and Cox. No score. Cedeno, as he's prone to do it, he feels a pitcher is going to make him wait. He's done that oft times through his career. He'll back out and he'll say, "You'll play my game now." Two hits in the game, both by Kansas City. A double by Lonnie Smith in the first, a single by Steve Balboni in the second. 1-2 the count. Charlie Leibrandt came up with the Reds. Sent over here in a deal. It was one of those, not minor deals, but one of the things that would not capture your imagination. And yet he's turned out to be a beauty. A transaction made by John Schuerholz, Joe Burke, front office staff at Kansas City, and they have turned in some gems through the years.
That was a minor league deal that sent Bob Tufts, also a pitcher, over to Kansas City, and they had an article in the Kansas City paper today about Bob Tufts. And since the trade, Bob Tufts has acquired 30 hours toward his master's degree at Columbia University, and Charlie Leibrandt has almost acquired 30 wins as a member of the Kansas City Royals. So Bob says the trade helped both guys.
Roone Arledge and Chet Forte paying their alumni dues now along with Bob Cuff as Cedeno goes down swinging. Second strikeout for Charlie Leibrandt. 7 straight set down by him. San Diego and the Raiders is our presentation as the 2 AFC West rivals meet on ABC's NFL Monday Night Football, 9 Eastern. 1 out, and Porter is the batter. Darrell caught the first 3 games in the series, and then since he was 1 for 9, came out for Nieto the last 2 nights. And now back in again. 1-0 the count. Good pitch, 1-1. Talking about an average velocity fastball, and yet he seems faster than he looks.
Well, he does, and producer Dennis Lewin said he's 88 miles per hour. Of course, the gun that ABC uses is a Jugs gun, which is about 3 to 5 miles faster. I know a lot of people disagree with that, but if you took the 2 radar guns that do use in the major leagues, one is 3 to 5 miles slower than the other. The Jugs seems to be the higher thing, but he's right around 88 on our gun. But again, it goes back to that changeup. If you establish a changeup and it's effective enough to make the hitter look for it, it adds a couple of feet to the fastball. Plus, let's put it this way, he has not thrown the ball in the middle of the plate very much. Plus, he has, to me, the way I look at a fastball, velocity really doesn't mean a whole lot. It's whether the ball moves. He got pretty good life on his fastball. It's moving around, sailing, running back in. The high kick, the sneaky delivery.
2-2 is inside, and the count is full. So it's 3-2 with Danny Cox, the pitcher, on deck.
Talked about Bill Campbell, reliever for St. Louis, all arms and legs. Not only does Charlie Leibrandt have great location, he also has a deceptive delivery.
Lifted into foul territory. Brett toward an unfriendly dugout. One of the things Brett was talking about before the game was the fact that the one thing he did know he had in his favor going after the foul ball the other night was he was going toward friendly confines. That was his dugout. And he knew that somebody would be there.
Of course, you never know what's going to happen, but having really watched a lot of baseball for 20 years, normally when another player goes in the dugout, you're going to help him out.
That's grounded down to the right side of Balboni off the bat of Cox, and Charlie Leibrandt has started the game by retiring the first 9. Cards nothing, Royals nothing after 2.5. Bottom of the 3rd inning at Royal Stadium in Kansas City, Game 6 of the World Series. Cardinals leading 3 games to 2. This one is scoreless, and it's Leibrandt, Lonnie Smith, and Willie Wilson. Saberhagen and Tudor. And that's what they're hoping for, and that would be the matchup tomorrow night in what would be definitively the final game of the baseball season. Strike to Leibrandt. Of course, the way the weather has been, we might as well just keep on going for about 3 or 4 more weeks.
Beach weather today.
Unbelievable. 1-1. So this is the first all prime time, all night game World Series, and you can see how far off the line Pendleton is. And a great break in the weather. 1-2.
And of course, when night games were first played, everybody was talking about how it would be too cool, and it was done primarily for television, but that's not necessarily the case.
Leibrandt goes down swinging.
And the reason I say that is a lot of times in World Series play or playoff play, you see a lot of games starting at unusual times, plus in late October. Even if it were to start at 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that wouldn't accommodate television. In the latter part of the game, you would have those shadows cut across from first to third base. And at night, of course, there's only one shadow, and that's dark. And I think it's helped the players as much as it's helped anybody. Obviously, it's helped television because it's prime time viewing.
Lonnie Smith has a hit tonight, 1 for 1, doubled in the first inning, and it's low, ball 1.
Plus, 2/3 of the games are played at night anyway during the season, except at Wrigley Field.
We should correct that. It helps the hitters. Hitters like to hit at nighttime. Pitchers like to pitch when it's dusk and you can't see.
Yeah, sure, with that shadow hanging across in front of home plate. 1964 at Yankee Stadium, we had that problem. That was before renovation went on there.
Hit in the air to center field. McGee initially misjudged it and still has a lot of time as the ball was hit high enough and hung long enough, and Willie is speedy enough for him to go back and make the catch. Lonnie Smith hit it very hard, but it's an out, and there are 2 down.
Well, when you have this kind of guy's talent, it makes the play look easy. As Al said, misjudged it slightly.
There is the White Sox manager, Tony La Russa, who just re-upped for another year in Chicago. Tony, who led the team to the Western Division Championship in 1983. White Sox making a front office change. Hawk Harrelson out of the broadcast booth, now the VP baseball operations. Can you imagine the Hawk with a coat and tie? More than that, can you imagine Hawk Harrelson now has to get up before noon for the first time in his life?
Also, more than that, we broadcasters hope it's not a growing trend.
2-0, and it's hit in the air to left field and right at Tito Landrum. So Cox and Liebrand setting them down through the first third of the game. We go to the fourth, scoreless at KC. Well, let's see. Give me a loaf of bread, a pound of Biancalana, and a slice of Balboni, huh? Right from room service. Ozzie Smith to lead things off in the 4th inning with no score. Charlie Liebrand starts him with a pitch that's low. What was it? Tony Kornheiser of the Washington Post talking about Buddy Biancalana wrote, it sounds like a Chardonnay you would order in a 3-star French restaurant. 1-1.
We talked earlier about the lineup shift and moving Ozzie Smith from second to first. Earlier in the series, we were talking about the 5 switch hitters. Of course, Vince Coleman's not been playing. Ozzie is the best average hitter from the right side of the Cardinals. That could be another reason. Certainly has not yet to get a hit from the right side in the World Series. Only one, and that's from the left side. I think also when you have a tendency of not scoring runs, occasionally you'll just throw up another lineup. I don't think there's any definitive reason why he did that.
Well, one big thing could be that Willie McGee hit second and drove in 82 runs all season long.
Ozzie Smith pops it up, and Sundberg will have a play. 1 away. 10 up and 10 down. McGee is coming up. There it is during the regular year, and you can see the tremendous difference between the regular season and what's happened in the past week.
Of course, I think everything, when you talked about the Cardinals, of course, if you have Vince Coleman in there, those numbers may not be quite the same, was to keep the first 3 guys off. Not really talking about Clark, but talking the first 3 hitters in the Cardinals lineup off base. You have a chance to really hold them down, and that's been the case.
Also, it's worth noting with the count 1-0 on McGee that 47 innings have now been played in the World Series as McGee takes outside, and the Cardinals have scored more than 1 run in only 1 of those innings, and that was the 4-run 9th inning in Game 2. Everything else has been a 0 or a singleton.
Well, if you talk to any pitching coach, any manager, and he says, you give me a pitcher, number 1, that's left-handed, and also can go 2-0 on a guy that led the National League in hitting and throw him a changeup on the outside corner, that guy says, I want him on my pitching staff. And that's exactly what Liebrand did right there. That's a perfect pitch, and it counts 2 balls and no strikes.
Got jammed and hits it down to short, and Biancalana comes up throwing to nab him. 2 down. So McGee trots back, and Tommy Herr makes his way to the plate. Willie McGee, odds-on choice to be the National League's most valuable player. That will be announced in November.
Interesting point that Jim just made about pitching situations. When you throw that 2-0 changeup and then come back inside with the 2-1 fastball, sometimes it's not the pitch, it's how you got there. And if you get there via the off-speed pitch, sometimes you could bust the ball in on a guy that would normally handle the fastball inside. And that's what happened to Willie McGee his last time up.
Fouled away. John Tudor. A penny for your thoughts, John. And Brett Saberhagen. Oh, a nickel for yours. Saberhagen. I have never seen anybody that young and that loose under these circumstances. That will be the matchup tomorrow night. 1 ball, 2 strikes, the count on Tommy Herr.
Showed John Tudor, Lebrand, even though he doesn't have that sidearm motion that Tudor has, certainly works both sides of the plate like John Tudor does. In and out, little change of speed, similar to Tudor in the way he goes about it.
Hit down to Brett. Lebrand has retired 12 in a row. He has just been magnificent in postseason, but is still looking for a W. No score. On the subject of that play in St. Louis the other night, I spoke earlier with George Brett.
Now, what about any after effects whatsoever from the play of the other night?
I have none. I got poked in the eye when Lee May tried to catch me. For a couple innings, I had to keep on blinking. You get poked in the eye, it makes your eye water a lot. And I really wasn't picking up the ball that good. And Dick said, well, look, we got a 6-1 lead. I'll just go ahead and put Greg in. You want to hit? And I said, yeah, I want to hit. And I ended up getting a hit, so I felt pretty good.
And Brett saying he was fine yesterday, no blurry vision. Fine tonight. Except in the scorebook, where there's a K in the first inning on a called 3rd strike. Up high, ball 1. Brett, White, and Sheridan. Bottom of the 4th inning, no score. So the makings of another pitching duel. We talked about Lebrand and what he's doing tonight, and the bad luck he's had in postseason. He did, though, pick up a victory in Game 7 of the ALCS because he relieved Brett Saberhagen, who had to come out of the game because he was hit on the finger. So even though he has pitched so well the last 2 years in postseason and has no victories as a starter, he did get that win in Game 7 in Toronto out of the bullpen.
Looking at Danny Cox, and here's a guy 18-9, led the league in the highest percentage of first batters allowed, 41% over the course of a year. We talked about that stat that Steve Bird has given us throughout the year, where if you do allow the first runner of the inning on 51% of the time he scores, you get him out, it's only 14%. So kind of we're looking at a contradiction. But we did show us in Game 2 that he pitches very well when he gets in jams.
Ball 3, and that pitch was pretty similar to the one on which he was rung up in the first. To Brad. Just took something off of it, enough so that George was slightly out in front, still 3-2.
He not only pitches backwards as far as allowing a lot of first runners on base, but he does throw a lot of breaking balls behind in the count.
In the air to right field, it's deep and very high, and all the way back at the fence is Cedeno to make the catch. So Brett just got under it. A bit too much, and it's a long out. 1 away.
Back-to-back changeups. Here's Steve Cedeno going back. Nice play. Gets back to the fence to see where he is. And then comes back for the ball. A lot of outfielders let the fence play him instead of knowing where it is, and you have a tendency to reach for it.
1 out, nobody on, and Frank White tries to bunt his way on. It's a beauty. Pendleton, bare hands, throws. Too late. And pulling Clark off the bag.
Frank bunted against Danny Cox the first time up in game 2. And Terry Pendleton playing him back, and not even with the bag. A tough play for a third baseman, because you have to respect the ability of Frank White to pull the ball by you, so you have to play back a little bit. But Frank White lays down a blueprint for a base hit.
In a way, sort of typical of this World Series that the cleanup men have bunted so much. Clark tried it a couple of times as well. Sheridan grounds it foul, and the count 0-1.
I tell you, that's a dangerous pitch with Frank White on first base. If you remember the other night, George Brett got a change up and doubled down the line for the first run of the game. When you have Jack Clark holding him on, not a lot of experience, Tommy Hurd cheating towards second a bit, even though Ozzie Smith will be covering. It gives Sheridan a chance to pull the ball through the hole.
1-1 the count.
Coupled with the fact that you just blown Sheridan away with 3 fastballs away the first time up.
Well, that's when we talk about a guy that's only been pitching 2 years in the major leagues. Amazing. He did win 18 games. He does get a lot of first batters on, which usually indicate problems. You throw 3 fastballs right by a guy, and you come back with a changeup that most likely he will be out in front full.
With all that said, if you're Pat Sheridan, you got to look for the fastball away. That's the cat and mouse game that's played between the hitter and the pitcher.
2-1.
You're sitting at home and you say, well, how come Darrell Porter, who's a veteran catcher, or how come he let him do that? A lot of pitchers throw their changeup off the fastball. In other words, the catcher doesn't even know it's coming.
That used to be a lot of fun.
White is going. The pitch is outside. Porter's throw to Smith is in time to nail it. So Darrell Porter down to Ozzie Smith.
Darrell did not have a good pitch to handle. Frank White, not a big lead. He was on. You could really say he was thrown out at first base and not second, because he didn't have the big lead. And Ozzie Smith, if he missed him on the knee or the foot, his foot was in there before he tagged him on the chest. But that was a case of the ball beating him out of there.
And Sheridan swings and misses, and a nice play by Smith to scoop it.
The kind of lead that Frank White had, it almost looked like maybe Sheridan missed a hit and run. I mean, he had a very, very tentative lead, not even a foot on the carpet. We've talked about that.
He had no jump whatsoever at first base.
Sheridan grounds it into the hole into right field for a base hit. You know what you said, Jim, I think is very interesting. The more I think about it, I agree with you. I think Sheridan may very well have missed a hit and run there.
Especially with Frank White with that small lead. Now look at the tag play. Frank White's leg stays down. Did Ozzie touch the foot? Nope. The knee? Nope. Now the chest, and by the time he gets up that far, Frank White had his foot in there. But when the ball beats a runner by that much, if it's close, you're punched out of there.
So 2 down, and Sheridan at first base. And Balboni hits it in the air to center field and right to Willie McGee. So no runs, 2 hits, they leave 1. To the 5th we go, scoreless. Mid-game comment from number 44, Reggie Jackson.
You know, I think the lack of offense is starting to surprise me now, Al. It's been 6 ball games now, and really don't see much happening. Very surprising to me to see what St. Louis is doing. Here's a team that led the National League with a .264 batting average. Do they miss Vince Coleman that much? Maybe they do. Here's a guy with 110 stolen bases and 20 doubles, which means he was on second base 130 times. The Kansas City Royals, on the other hand, I can understand their problems because they were second to last in in offense in the American League, or in batting average. They hit only .252. As ball games get close like this and stay tight, seems to me like guys start trying to hit home runs. So we'll see if they can stay within themselves to try to end the game or put themselves on the board. We'll see if they can stay within themselves and score runs.
And here's the typical example of a man up there to hit a home run, or at least attempting to, on almost every swing. 1-2 the count on Jack Clark.
Well, that's the one thing I know when I pitched, I really felt that, of course, depending on what kind of club, they have contained Jack Clark. He has not been able to hit a home run. He's had 4 RBIs, but they've kept him in the ballpark. In fact, there hasn't been a home run hit here in Kansas City. And this is supposed to be almost the same dimensions as it was in St. Louis, but everybody felt that St. Louis was a better park to pitch in, and we saw 3 home runs when we were there.
Fly ball, shallow center. Wilson got fooled. White goes out, and Frank takes care of it. One of those plays where the center fielder misreads it and goes back, but high enough and not deep enough, and no problem for White.
Kurt Flood told me something one time that was very indicative of what Willie Wilson just did, and that's why Frank White had to make the play. On a ball hit right at the center fielder, if the ball is above the beak of the cap, you break back. If it's below the beak of the cap, you break in. And that's what happened to Willie Wilson right there. He broke back and couldn't recover in time, and White had to make the catch.
Interesting little theory. Never heard that before.
So if the ball is even with the beak of it, you just stay where you are.
That's exactly right.
In your tracks.
No, you can see it because you're going to have time. If the ball's above the beak of the cap, you've got time. If it's below, you better get going forward.
That one is out of play, and the count is 1-1 on Tito Landrum.
I like this information. I mean, I'm playing a lot of softball when I get to Phoenix. So
not center field though.
Left field. I know my limitations.
If you would have listened to Weaver, you would have known all of this by now.
Let me tell you something. Weaver had his outfielders play so deep that the only ball that they ever went back on was a home run.
Now wait a minute. Not Paul Blair though. He played a shallow center.
Not because Earl wanted him to.
Oh.
That's fouled away, and a count 1-2 on Landrum. 1 out, bases empty, no score. Charlie Leibrandt has been perfect through 4 1/3, setting down all 13. Royals have had 4 hits, but Cox has scattered them, and it's a scoreless 6th game. 2-2. Landrum now 7 for 20, so he's hitting .350 in the World Series. Still 2-2 with Pendleton on deck.
Something that Reggie alluded to, which is, do they miss Vince Coleman that much? Yes, I think they do, because we've talked about Landrum, .391 coming off the bench, second best pinch hitter in the National League, good defensive outfielder. But again, and it's almost a cliche now, that speed doesn't get into slumps.
Fly ball to right center field. Sheridan comes on. 14 straight set down by Leibrandt. 2 down. Reminder tomorrow morning, 10:30 Eastern time, the New York City Marathon. Over 19,000 runners ready to compete. Greta Weitz, Orlando Pizzolato at 10:30 Eastern time tomorrow. 2 down. Coleman looking on from the dugout, and Pendleton is at the plate. A strike. You know, I suspect something. It would have to happen the right way for Herzog, but let's say either tonight or if we go to a Game 7 tomorrow, the Cardinals have a very big lead late in the game. I'm not sure that Whitey Herzog might not send Vince Coleman up to hit one time, just to play in the World Series.
With or without the cast?
Well, that's a soft cast, and he can at least jog down to first base. If the lead was big enough. Grounded to third. Brett throws out Pendleton. 5 perfect innings for Charlie Leibrandt. No score through 4 1/2. Our crack staff has obtained the exclusive first photos of Drew Saberhagen. Drew William Saberhagen, 11:38 this morning.
So the baby watch continues.
Yes, it does. Well, the baby watch is over right now. Is Drew a left-hander or a right-hander?
We just watched the baby. How can you say it's over?
That's right. Sundberg to lead things off in the bottom of the 5th inning. We'll make this into a primetime series, I suppose. Sundberg, Biancalana, and then Lebrand. It's a strike to Sundberg. Truman's home, not far from this ballpark, Independence. And the count 1-2.
I think that was printed in 1948 on the front page of the Chicago Tribune.
Certainly was.
History tells us that was not correct, however.
Didn't make the final edition that way.
Oh, no.
2-2 the count on Sundberg. No runs, 4 hits for the Royals. No runs, no hits for the Cardinals. And Charlie Lebrand has pitched a perfect game through 5. 3-2 now. Danny Cox hasn't walked a man. He has struck out 4. There is Lebrand. Cool and calm and composed. And Jim Lonborg, the last to do what Lebrand has just done in 67, is Sundberg lines it to left for a base hit. This is how a few of the Royals rallies have begun. They love to get it started from that lower part of the order. If you can do that and get to the top, you're in pretty good shape.
It's also where scouting reports pay off. 3-2. Jerry Terrell and the rest of the Kansas City scouts know that Cox throws a lot of sliders. Sundberg most likely was looking for one because he wrapped it to left for a base hit.
No way Biancalana's going to be bunting with Lebrand up. When this is the case, middle innings usually hit and run.
The pitch is a strike, and the count is 0-1. Biancalana coming in tonight, a .500 on-base percentage for the World Series and .371 for all of postseason. And this is a fellow who hit .188 during the regular year. Fouling it away, and the count is 0-2.
170 from the left side, so having arm. What's more impressive, and I guess this is one of the reasons why Dick Hauser played him really about the whole second half of the season, is because of the outstanding job he's done defensively at shortstop.
Crowd chanting, buddy, buddy. Up and in, 1-2. Lebrand is on deck with no one out. No score, bottom of the 5th. Two balls and 2 strikes.
You can always tell a pitcher who throws a lot of sliders can't straighten that arm out. And Danny Cox, even though he is young, you can tell he's thrown a lot of sliders. That right arm will not straighten. That looks like he's in a permanent handshake position. Bob Gibson the same way.
Lifted to right center. McGee and Cedeno, and Willie takes charge. 1 away. So Sundberg is at first, 1 down, and Charlie Lebrand comes up. He struck out in the 3rd inning.
Jim Palmer, however, with those brilliant mechanics, and also the fastball curveball. Kidding about that, though, Jimmy. You didn't throw a slider. You cut a little fastball, and consequently, your arm can straighten out, right? For the most part.
Kind of.
Kind of, yeah. You go to a tailor, and he makes the right arm about 3 inches shorter than the left arm, right?
Actually, my right arm is longer. Kind of a rarity, and we'll most likely see the bunt here. Charlie Lebrand in Game 2 bunted into a double play. We've talked about it's a much easier defense, a bunt on AstroTurf.
Down to Clark, and he makes the play unassisted. In addition to bunting into that double play, he also did sacrifice successfully on one other trip. So 3 unassisted, Sundberg at second, and this is what the Royals want to do, get to the top of that order.
Look at the bat head above the hands, and that's why he got the bunt down. Jack Clark, the reason he bunts the ball to first base, Jack Clark's responsibility is to hold the runner on, and Clark playing conservatively there because it's the second out of the inning. No sense in trying to go to second base on a play like that because the Royals actually have one shot to drive Sundberg in.
And Lonnie Smith has hit the ball hard tonight twice. He doubled in the first inning. And the ball he hit for the out was hit much harder than the double when he drove one to center in the third. So he has timed Cox twice tonight. And he grounds this one to the left side. Fielded by Pendleton over to first, and down go the Royals. At the end of 5, no score. We'll be back to the 1985 World Series after this word from our local stations. And Notre Dame and Navy will be coming your way, along with Florida State against Miami next week on CFA football. Now to the 6th inning. Cesar Cedeno fouling it back, and the count is 0-1. Cedeno, Porter, and Cox against Lee Brand, who's pitched 5 perfect innings. Charlie has struck out 2. He got her in the first and Cedeno in the third. One and one.
Baseball's a lot like golf. Every time you think you got it figured out, something goes. I mean, here's a guy that 3 for 25 in postseason play. Yet when he came up, August 29th, from Cincinnati to St. Louis, he's up 75 times, gets 33 hits, 6 home runs. Almost every RBI he had was a key one. And then you go into a more or less a mini slump.
Tell you, there'd be a lot of hitters in mini slumps and major slumps if they had to face Charlie Leibrandt the way he's pitching tonight. He has not thrown a ball down the fat part of the plate tonight.
And that's looped to left field. Smith plays it conservatively, and he backs up. Lonnie had a chance to make the catch, but it's well known. We don't have to beat it to death. He is not a very good outfielder. He's a very erratic outfielder. In fact, he sort of reminds you of that commercial for the armed forces. It's not just a job, it's an adventure when a ball's hit out to him.
I agree with you, Al. This ball had a lot of hang time out there. A lot of hang time, and Lonnie Smith is going over instead of in. And the one thing you can do on the rug and the artificial surface, the ball's going to take a truer hop. And even if you're on top of it, there's no chance of it bouncing over your head because you can smother a ball like that. And you see it happen all the time.
So the perfect game, the no-hitter, goes down the drain here in the 6th inning. And Cedeno is at first base with no one out. Porter fouled out in the third. 1 ball, no strikes to count. No runs, 5 hits for the Royals. No runs, 1 hit now for the Cardinals. Cedeno, who used to be very fast, obviously in his mid-30s now, has lost a step or two. As Porter takes a strike, but he'll still run.
Well, if he could run, he would have been on second base because that ball was not hit that well. Again, it might, and I cannot think for Lonnie Smith, but in a tie ball game, 0-0, you don't want to set up the leadoff man with a double. That might have been his thinking. Because if you do kind of, as you said, smother the ball, and the ball goes away at all, the runner is going to go to second. So maybe he did the conservative thing, but he does leave that right field hole open with Porter, a left-hander up there. That's the way big innings start. Talked about in the pregame show, the one thing Dick Hauser cannot have happen is the big inning.
And a lot of big innings start when the bottom of the order gets on.
A big inning might be considered 1 run in this ball game.
Yeah. That's looped into shallow right field for a base hit. Cedeno will stop at second and has to hustle back as the throw comes in. So neither Cedeno nor Porter hit the ball well, but they have runners at first and second and nobody out, and Cox coming up to bunt.
High fastball again gets in on Porter's hands, it looks like. Here he hits it right about the trademark. Now said, looped into right field. Cedeno's thinking about going to third, but Sheridan can throw, and he does. Cedeno just gets back in time.
Now in this bunting situation, we'll see if the Royals put the rotation play on. That's when the first and third baseman charge. The shortstop covers third, and the second baseman goes to first. Or we'll see if they play it straight up.
Cox had the most sacrifices of any pitcher. The rotation is on. It's a strike. He had 8 sacrifices, the most of any Cardinal pitcher. So you know he can bunt.
Really 3 variations that you can do. You can have the pitcher throws the ball and covers third, tries to make the play and force the runner there, or he goes to first base. Brett charges, and they try to get the second runner, which would be Porter, and keep a double play in order. Now the third variation is a pickoff play.
Cox around the bunt, in the air, caught by Brett, and the runners hold. A big out because it keeps the runners at first and second, and also brings up a man who is 1 for 18. And this is one time when Whitey Herzog's probably kicking himself a little bit about that lineup change with McGee and Smith.
It's a big out, but what if George Brett drops this ball, throws the ball to third base, and then to second? You got a man on first with 2 outs. Frank White's at second base, Biancalana at third. Cedeno's tagging it right on the bag at second base. Not tagging, but he's on the bag. Porter's on the bag at first base. You drop that ball. Of course, you can't drop it once it touches your glove because it's intentional.
Well, it's
no infield fly rule on a bunt.
Unless the ball's high enough.
And the ball wasn't high enough on that, I'll guarantee you.
And if
it is high, the guy's out anyway.
There was no signal from the umpire.
No.
So 1 out, runners at first and second. Royals bullpen getting busy. Cedeno, the runner at second. Porter, the runner at first. Crowd chanting, Charlie, Charlie. Inside to Smith, and the count is 1-0.
Going back to that play, Tim, and you've fought for years. If Sundberg calls the play, it makes it a lot easier because Brett has his back to the runners, the pitcher has his back to the runners.
That's grounded down to Biancalana. He goes to White, 1, back to first, double play.
Pivot by Frank White. He's got Porter bearing down on him, but he gets rid of the ball just in time to get Ozzie Smith. Ozzie Smith with runners at first and second and 1 out. You can see he's trying to pull that changeup away. Now watch Porter bearing down on White. Porter does the job, but not before White gets rid of the ball to just get Ozzie Smith at first. Some kind of pitching by Lebrand.
First and second, nobody out. Gets Cox to pop a bunt, then a doubleheader. If there's a game 7, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, and 5 Pacific tomorrow, Tudor and Saberhagen. No further billing necessary.
Well, in close games, usually it's the little things that beat you. Cox failed to execute. Talked about his inability sometimes to get the leadoff man, and this guy gets on.
And Wilson does get on with a base hit to right field. Willie taking the turn, and Cedeno over to cut it off and get it back in. And so the Royals, quelling a threat in the top of the inning, have Wilson aboard in the bottom.
Once again, a high slider. Wilson right on it, having a great series. Cedeno, one thing in his mind, and that's to keep Wilson at first base.
Brett. And Brett is what you would call, for him anyway, due. It's not that he's having a bad series. He is 6 for 20. That's 300. But he's not been swinging the bat Brett-like, let's say, for a couple of nights. And he grounds it down to second. And the Cardinals, from Hurd to Smith to Clark, turn a double play. So Dick Hauser watches Wilson get on, and Brett hit the next pitch right down to Hurd.
You remember 2 innings ago when we were talking about what a left-handed hitter does to that sinker away? That's exactly the pitch George Brett had. He was trying to use the hole on the right side, and when you try to do that, instead of hitting it back through the middle, that's what happens. Play Pepper with that second baseman all day long if you're a left-handed hitter, and as Ozzie Smith did to end the top of the 6th, you play Pepper with the shortstop if you're a right-handed hitter. Some kind of pitching by both Cox and Liebrand.
2 out, bases empty, and Frank White. It's a little squibber foul.
Well, it illustrates your point about the cat and mouse game. Brett's trying to hit it in the hole. Cox is trying to get the ball low and away. And in that time, Cox won the battle. Something you work on the sidelines. A lot of people forget, and a lot of young pitchers forget, that that's where you really prepare yourself to be able to make that kind of pitch. Working on the outside corner, because you know when you're pitching, especially in a close game, that these situations are going to come up. And if you can't do it, you're going to throw a grounder into right and have a first and third situation.
Good fastball, 2-2. Strikes him out. So a promising beginning to the inning as Wilson singles, but the Royals don't score as we go to the 7th. So we're going to the 7th inning. Again, the New York City Marathon tomorrow, which is always very exciting, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. And speaking of marathons, the way Liebrand and Cox are pitching, we may be heading for one. They have both been brilliant. The game is scoreless. The Cardinals are trying to win the World Championship. The Royals are trying to set up a Game 7. 7th inning, Willie McGee. 0 for 2 is the batter. Low for a ball, and the count is 1-0. Fly to center and grounded to short. McGee is now hitting .333 in the series. That's grounded toward the hole, but backhanded by Biancalana. Gets him.
A lot of times the barometer of whether a shortstop's going to be able to play in the big leagues is going into the hole and making a strong throw. What a gun.
He's not Ozzie, but he's pretty good.
He really planted that right foot there. A lot of times when shortstops go to their right and try to plant that foot, it comes out from under them on the rug. But Buddy planted it and threw a seed to first base.
Tommy Hurd takes up high, ball 1. That's Corinne, Charlie's wife and daughter, watching their man pitch a gem. Grounded toward the hole. Another good chance for Buddy. Spears it. Boy, I tell you, everybody thought Ozzie Smith would be the big story, and even Biancalana allows himself a little smile.
He's already shown he can go to his right. This ball comes up for him. Had that ball stayed down, it would have been a much more difficult play, but Biancalana, watch the jump. You notice he pivots on his left foot. He doesn't lift his left foot up first like a good base runner at first base doesn't lift his right foot up first. You pivot on that. And he got a good jump and throws out her easily. 2 fine plays by Biancalana.
He's the only guy who's going to go from a supporting role on the Letterman show to a prime role on Dynasty, the way this is going. 2 down, and Clark at the plate. 0-1.
You talked about that home run swing. I found as a pitcher sometimes in extra inning ball games late in the game, when hitters go up there trying to hit a home run, they become much easier outs. As Reggie said, our colleague, he talked in the game, you have to stay within yourself. Now, certainly Jack Clark, the only true home run hitter on the Cardinals, is probably trying to go up there and make sure that he gets a good swing. But when the lesser hitters, the single hitters, try to hit home runs, they're doing the pitcher a favor.
0-2 pitch. He's outside, and the count is 1-2.
George Brett on the line. That cost him last Sunday with 2 out and a runner at third base, the 2-0 lead. Jack Clark singled to left, and he eventually scored the tying run, and 2 trailers made it 4-2 Cardinals.
No score at the end of 6 1/2. Monday night, the Chargers and the Raiders, 2 teams separated by about 120 miles. Great rivalry continues, and you'll see it at 9 Eastern time. Danny Cox pitching a gem along with Lebrand, working himself out of a difficult situation on a couple of occasions, in particular in the first inning when Smith led off with a ringing double, but he got Wilson, Brett, and White. Gave up a couple of hits, but White was thrown out trying to steal in the 4th inning. Wilson led off the 6th with a single, as did Sundberg in the 5th. But nobody has scored as Sheridan starts things by taking a change for a strike. In fact, the Royals tonight have had the leadoff man on 3 times, but haven't cashed. That gets the corner, and it's 0-2. Sheridan, Balboni, and Sundberg, bottom of the 7th.
To me, Tim, it'll be interesting to see. First time struck him out on fastballs away. The next time threw him a changeup. It's 2 strikes, no balls. What will he do this time?
Blows it by him. Strikeout number 6. Sheridan, not only his statistics looking terrible, his swing looks awful.
And that's why they say for hitters that it's sound to protect the outside part of the plate with 2 strikes. That's when you go into a defensive posture as a hitter, which means you're vulnerable inside, but you can't look away and inside at the same time.
Balboni takes up high, ball 1. Well, sooner or later it has to happen. Balboni in the last 2 years has been up 56 times without an extra base hit in postseason. 2-0. This is a fellow who, believe it or not, if you've been watching television for the last 2 weeks, hit 36 home runs this year. Got the corner on the inside part. 2-1. The count. Sundberg is on deck. And that's a breaking ball to put him aboard. Balboni at first base, and that is the first walk of the night by either pitcher. Funny, Tim and Jim, if you like scoring and if you equate excitement with runs, this has not been a good World Series. But if you enjoy the game and you kind of pay attention to what's going on, and you don't think about saying or writing just cute and clever things, for the sake of getting the line across, it's been a pretty good World Series.
Pitching has totally dominated the series, and sometimes it will sedate a crowd, but not so here in Kansas City, and it wasn't the case in St. Louis.
Strike, and the count 0-1. One out. Balboni at first base. No score in the bottom of the 7th. Fouled away, and the count is 0-2.
Almost a hit-and-run situation. Maybe not now, but earlier in the count. But again, I think Dick Hauser, when he has seen what Sundberg has done off Danny Cox, he has not really hit him with much authority. You know if he misses the pitch, and Cox has made some great pitches with a slider, Balboni is going to be out at second.
Still 0-2 with Biancalana on deck. Buddy, who is 4 for 14 in the series.
Described by Tom Nieto as a pesky type of hitter when he played against him in Double-A ball.
And Sundberg goes down on strikes. So number 7 for Cox, who has struck out 3 of the last 4 men he has faced. And up comes Biancalana, and there is Todd Worrell throwing in the bullpen. So the one thing Cox has done is he's gotten Herzog to the point where he can go to his top guys. Not thinking about long men. Andujar was the long man early. I mentioned, too, that Daly was in Herzog's plans as a long man. McCann is also the kind of guy who's available all night long. He can come in as a short man as well. And in the bullpen for KC, it's Quisenberry throwing. Even though neither pitcher looks like he's in need of relief, this is the World Series, and it's Game 6, and you get him up early. As Biancalana hits one to right center for a base hit. Balboni will stop at second, and now, of all things, Hauser has to send up the pitcher, Liebrand.
He doesn't have to.
Or does he? We'll find out.
He's got Hal McRae in the dugout for a situation just like this. Hal McRae, of course, against John Tudor the other night, grounded out with the bases loaded and 2 out.
And this is why I hate the DH.
Yep.
And it's not worth getting into a whole discussion of it right now, but think of what Hauser had to think about right now. No score, World Series, need a victory. What do I do? A pitcher who's pitching brilliantly, an inconsistent but terrific in the past relief pitcher. I've got to send the pitcher up.
If you're not going to pitch hit for Liebrand here, what was Quisenberry doing up?
0-1 the count. Yeah, I'm thinking of an answer here. If the man gets the third, maybe? Nah, that wouldn't make any difference with 2 outs.
Not with 2 outs.
Not with 2, that's what I was saying, yeah. 0-2 the count.
Well, you know, if you stayed with Liebrand in the second game, and the way he's throwing tonight, which is really just as good or maybe better.
And down he goes on a half swing for strike 3. So Cox strikes out the side in between a walk and a single. And 7 left for the Royals tonight, to the 8th in a scoreless Game 6. There's Liebrand's line as we go to the 8th inning, a scoreless game. And earlier I visited with Charlie.
Do you feel at all maybe jinxed the way things have been going?
Well, I don't know. I've been fortunate enough to pitch some pretty good ball games. If I can do that again, I think my chances should be a little bit better. Maybe with Quiz out in the bullpen, we might come to him a little bit earlier. I don't know, but I still felt confident even late into the ball game. I know it's going to enter my mind if I'm fortunate enough to get that far into the 9th, but I haven't had too much success in 9th innings. But I still felt my stuff was good. I still felt confident I was going to get out. I just couldn't get out. Hopefully this will be different.
Well, we'll find out. No score with Landrum, Pendleton, and Cedeno in the top of the 8th inning. Landrum fouling it away, and the count is 0-2. Landrum has twice flied to right. 1-2 the count. Fred again guarding the line. Back of the bag at third. Balboni guarding the line at first. To center field. Willie Wilson is right there. And Tito Landrum is 0 for 3. One away. Pendleton the batter. The Cardinals have 2 hits tonight, and neither was what you'd call a solid hit. A fly ball to left field by Cedeno that fell in front of Smith, and a looper to right by Porter that came successively in the 6th inning.
Cardinals team average during the series is 196 coming into this game, and the Red Sox back in 1918 won the series in 6 games with a 186 average.
That's grounded into the hole for a base hit, and so Pendleton, who had been getting pretty quiet, makes a little bit of noise. A single to right with 1 out in the 8th inning, and Cedeno coming up.
Well, this is the way you have to hit Charlie Leibrandt. You have to go with the pitch. Goes right out and gets it. Doesn't try to pull it. Tim's alluded all night to Ozzie Smith and other Cardinal hitters trying to go out and get that ball and pull it. You can't do it and be successful.
Cedeno struck out, broke up the perfect game with a 6th inning single. Pendleton at first base. You know, he sort of left unanswered that question of why Quisenberry was up in the bullpen if Hauser didn't bring him in, as you look at Herzog. And wouldn't Vidal Sassoon like to get a hold of Whitey, by the way. But I guess as the throw goes to first base, what Hauser wanted was at least to have the option, and I'm sure did not make the decision until he was confronted with that particular situation. There was some question perhaps in his mind as the inning developed, and he wanted to be able to go either way. And then he just simply opted at the last moment for Leibrandt to hit with 2 on and 2 out.
Also, I talked to Dan, and he said a lot of pitchers can just get up and start throwing. He has to stretch, and he has to throw, and sometimes his arm is stiff, and he has not gotten as much work as he normally gets. So it's maybe getting ready for the next time he'll have to get up.
0-1 the count.
If the count evens up, if this next pitch is a ball, I would look for Pendleton to run. Pendleton with good speed. He has 17 stolen bases on the regular season. Cedeno, a contact hitter, the bottom of the order coming up. All the elements are there for a hit and run, but not on this pitch.
When do you pitch out?
Well, that's the thing. The danger of the pitch out is greater when the pitcher is ahead of the hitter because you can afford to waste one. We'll see.
1-1.
Talk about a hit and run, and what you try to do is get the middle infielders to move, create a hole that might not be there.
If you're a runner at first base, you cannot be picked off in a hit and run situation. Same is true if the count's 3-2 and less than 2 out, and you're the runner at first. You're much more deliberate in your lead.
You're looking at catcher Jim Sundberg, looking over at Dick Hauser. They do have 4 signs.
Pitch out, 2-1.
Dick Hauser controls the pitch outs. I'll tell you, I'd have pitched out then too. Sometimes you do it and you're just wrong. But now he's behind, and you may see the hit and run in order right here.
I think he's going.
I do too.
James?
I concur.
Bet your house on it.
Or Sheridan's house. It's still for sale. He doesn't go. 2-2. Well, there goes the mortgage and everything else, and the furnishings.
Mine too.
Yeah. I mean, not too bad about Pat Sheridan. He just lost his house for
Well, the other night we all thought that they should have been running first and second with nobody out, and had they been running, it wouldn't have been a double play.
That's right.
On the Pendleton to Herb play in St. Louis. 2-2 the count. I still think he's going here. Nope, he stays, and it's inside, and they throw back to first, not in time. So now it's 3-2.
Well, he's got to be running here. 3-2 and 1 out and good speed. Pendleton going out to check the dirt at first base. Close play at first base. Pendleton diving back, and Balboni with that quick tag. Good throw by Sundberg, but he's safe.
I say he's going. You say he's going.
Yeah.
Jim? All right, bet that hotel room that you moved into after you lost the house. 3-2 with 1 out.
Same situation, 3-2, 1 out. You cannot be picked off. It's up to the hitter to put the ball in play.
Lee Brandt with an excellent move, had 8 pickoffs this year.
He runs, the pitch is low, and it's first and second. 2 on, 1 out, and now Porter is coming up with a pitcher due up after Darrell.
Well, 0-0. You can't make a pitch in the middle of the plate. Just misses on the inside part of the plate. Ball 4.
Meanwhile, in the bullpen, Quisenberry and Black are up. Quisenberry, the right-hander, and Buddy Black, the starter, who is naturally working out of the bullpen under these circumstances. And in the Cardinal bullpen, Ken Daly has gotten up, the left-hander, because Herzog will have a decision to make if Porter can't get the man in.
We talked about in the pregame show, Charlie Lee Brandt threw 140 pitches last time he pitched. 0-0 game. Every pitch can mean the ball game. You got to be a little bit tired.
Strike, 0-1.
A lot different pitching a 0-0 game, a 2-1, a 1-0 ball game. The other 2 Kansas City wins, 6-1, 6-1. Make a mistake, it doesn't seem that monumental.
And Porter rips it foul, and the count is 0-2. Last time Lee Brandt had first and second, 1 out. He got Ozzie Smith to hit into a double play. Hauser looking at the lineup card, knowing the pitcher comes up next, knowing that Herzog, if Porter doesn't get Pendleton home, has a choice to make. Similar to the one Dick had to make, but Whitey has more options. He's got a much deeper bullpen, and Cox gave him the 7 innings that he wanted. So whereas Hauser opted for Lee Brandt, I tend to feel Herzog with that deep bullpen would opt for a pinch hitter.
Earlier that when a catcher moves off the plate away, if a pitcher's been having good control throughout the game, he'll get that pitch. And that's the reason that Darrell Porter was struck out on that particular pitch. That ball was right there, and now Whitey Herzog has gone to Brian Harper.
Harper, the right-handed pinch hitter, came up only 52 times this year and batted .250 with 8 runs batted in. So again, because of the flexibility and the maneuverability, and Daly now throwing in the bullpen, and keep in mind he has 5 men who work out of the bullpen, 3.5 of whom he would bring in here, and I say 3.5 meaning Horton as the half a guy. You know Worrell, you know Lottie, and you know Daly, with Pendleton at second and Cedeno at first, and Horton maybe to 1 batter. Campbell's more of a long man, and that's why he can afford to lift his pitcher more so than Hauser in the bottom of the 7th inning.
Also, we talked about losing Vince Coleman. Got to think that Tito Landrum will be batting right here. 391 on the year, second best pinch hitter in the National League, but because of Coleman's absence, have to send somebody else up there.
Brian Harper was the fellow who came over in that deal with Pittsburgh along with Tudor. He was the other guy in a deal that sent George Hendrick and a minor leaguer to Pittsburgh. Now, the Pirates, as you all know, had a terrible year. And think about that trade. Ugh. Fouled again, so he's jammed him twice, and the count is 0-2.
George Hendrick wound up with the California Angels. As you see Brian Harper trying to fight off this slider on the fist. And once again, Leibrandt ahead, 0-2.
2 on, 2 out. Harper, by the way, struck out only 3 times this season in 52 at-bats. A little soft looper, and it's into center for a base hit, and the Cardinals take the lead. And Charlie Leibrandt has to be talking to himself.
Well, he just missed away. Tries to come back up and in. Not hit very hard, but hit hard enough. Right off the fist.
Watch the reaction by Brian Harper when this ball falls.
So the Cardinals lead it 1-0, and Ozzie Smith is at the plate with Cedeno at second and Harper at first. And that's a strike. In the bottom of the inning, it's the top of the order for KC. Smith, Wilson, and Brett.
This is the time when it's most difficult for a pitcher. Emotionally, it's always a roller coaster. Your heart's down by your knees. Your disappointment is unparalleled. But the only way you have a chance to win the ball game is if you can get the next hitter out.
All of the runs that Leibrandt has given up, the 4 last Sunday and the 1 here tonight, have been given up with 2 out.
And Sundberg goes to the mound. That's a good thing to do, I think, right now, because you're down 1-0, and another base hit, and it's 2-0, and Blaylock's going to the mound. It's so visible, and how can you blame Leibrandt? If this happened isolated, you could feel for the guy. And yet you've all watched him now throughout the playoffs and going back to last year. And the miserable luck he's had. Meanwhile, Andy Van Slyke now comes out of the dugout to run for Cesar Cedeno. After the count had gone to 1-1, Herzog makes the change. And Van Slyke naturally will stay in the game and play right field.
Thoughts are, when am I going to catch a break? No doubt you feel sorry for yourself, but on the other hand, as you said, you can't let the game get out of control.
Yeah, because those tack-on runs can be the difference. Got to stop them right here, and that obviously is what Leibrandt's trying to do.
2-1. And now it's 2-2 on Ozzie.
If the Cardinals go on to win this game 1-0 and don't get 3 or 4 more hits, they will have the lowest team batting average in the history of the World Series to be a winner. Amazing.
Just inside, and Sundberg not only trying to frame the pitch, and Hauser is furious with Jim Quick. If he comes out to argue, then he's out of the game.
Well, he goes back. Brett was up earlier. Similar pitch.
Ooh. Ooh. the most emotion you've ever seen from Dick Hauser. Because he knows now the runners are going. It's 3-2. That was a vital pitch. And it's high, so the bases are loaded for Willie McGee. And Hauser is just seething, but he has to maintain his composure. He's going to the mound, and that second visit will mean exit Lebrand and enter Quisenberry or Black, depending on which way Hauser wants McGee to hit, and Willie has been remarkably consistent from both sides this year. Just an 8-point differential, so you're not doing him a favor by making him bat from either side. And Lebrand will come out to a no doubt thunderous ovation. But on the debit side again, and the signal goes to the right-hander, Quisenberry. So McGee will bat left-handed. The bases loaded. Listen to the hand. Return after this from your local station. Dan Quisenberry comes in with the Cardinals on top 1-0. Whitey Herzog making another move as you look at Charlie Lebrand watching Quiz try to get out of the rest of this jam. Andy Van Slyke, the runner at third, and Harper has been taken out for the pinch runner. Tom Lawless makes his first postseason appearance. He's at second. Ozzie Smith at first. The bases loaded and 2 out, and McGee at the plate. McGee 0 for 3. Foul back, 0-1. Again, in the bottom of the inning, Lonnie Smith, Wilson, and Brett, the top 3 for KC.
Quisenberry, once he got ahead, just showing him that fastball inside, because a sinker ball pitcher to a left-handed hitter has to keep the ball away, generally speaking, to be effective.
That's grounded toward the middle. White is there. It goes the short way to Biancalana. So Frank ranges back of second, and the National League batting champion retired on a force.
And a good play by Frank White over to Biancalana to give the Kansas City Royals life.
Andy Van Slyke is now in right field. He came in as the pinch runner, and the pitcher is Ken Daly. Daly's numbers there for this, his first full season in the major leagues. He had been up and down with Atlanta, then came over to the Cards last year, pitched for 4 different teams in '84, and has begun to come into his own now. And the left-hander comes in here. And how does Herzog, and we've talked about how he uses his bullpen, how does he decide on Daly over Worrell and Lottie here? One of the reasons is he wants the left-hander to face the top of the order for Kansas City. He'd rather have Wilson bat right-handed than lefty, and he'd rather have Brett have to face a left-handed pitcher. So that pretty much is the determination as to why Daly is in here now.
So even if there is a 3-up and 3-down inning, Todd Worrell may finish the ball game, work the bottom of the 9th inning. Matter of fact, I think he's up right now in the bullpen.
He is. Lonnie Smith, who was 1 for 3 against Cox. 0-1. There is Todd. thrown 2 good fastballs. 95 is what the gun says on that one.
We haven't seen his curveball yet. He's got a great hook.
Wonder if we'll see it here. No. Another fastball, and it's still 0-2.
Well, it's what we talked about, a similar case late in the season, pitching against the New York Mets. He throws a great curveball at Darryl Strawberry, and the next one goes off the clock, which is about 450 feet. To throw 2 fastballs by a guy, in this situation, you usually want to get beat with your best pitch.
1-2.
Another thing, when you've seen another team play for 6 games, if you're doing your homework out in the bullpen, which I'm sure Ken Daly's doing, you know that Lonnie Smith's an aggressive hitter. He is a high ball hitter, but when he swings through 2 fastballs, you know he will maybe go for another one.
And down he goes. A foul tip on a check swing, and it's held by Porter. And Smith is angry, contending he did not foul tip it. And Ferraro has to sprint down from third to get Smith away.
Willie Wilson.
Well, let's see if he didn't foul tip it. Did he go around? Leads with the hands through the strike zone. He really went too far. I mean, it's a strike whether he foul tipped it or not.
Yep. And it wasn't that far out of the zone.
Right.
Wilson takes low. He might have been out on 3 counts. A half swing, a called strike, and a foul tip. But the frustration showing right there, and that's why he barked it quick. On Wilson with Brett on deck.
And you notice Pendleton off the line. It's just a matter of, as you see George Brett on deck, Pendleton off the line, Jack Clark off the line, and they weren't playing Lonnie Smith off the line, on the line either. 1-run ball game in the 8th.
It's a matter of philosophy.
You know, when you think about it, if you play Willie Wilson on the line and he gets a single, chances of him stealing second base are great anyway. So in effect, Wilson, a single is a double for him. So playing off the line, in my opinion, is the proper thing to do now.
Except would a single be a double with Brett on deck in this situation? What do you think?
With the left-hander up. Well, that's an arguable point.
Well, I don't think it would be, because you got to have a lot of guts to walk the winning run to first base. Even if it is George Brett.
That's a strike, and now it's 3-2.
Well, if you walk Brett to first base and Wilson steals, then you got Todd Worrell pitching to Frank White. A lot of things could happen, depending on whether Wilson gets on or not, of course.
And it's high, ball 4. Woo, what a pitch to take, 3-2.
Again, during the regular season, you just go down to first. Tonight, there's been a lot of high strikes. Wilson knows that it's a ball. Would have done a complete snap if that was called a strike.
George Brett.
We talked about George Brett, situation hitter. This situation, he's looking for a ball he can pull, a ball he can drive.
And instead he gets a picture-perfect strike on the corner.
George Haskey and the umpire, a lot of times, we talked about earlier, a good hitter wants to know what the strike zone is. He said it got in the corner, he said, yep, so next time if it's out there, you're probably going to see him swing.
Looks like he's sticking with his fastball. He has not thrown a breaking ball yet. Struck out Lonnie Smith on all fastballs and 2 straight fastballs to Brett after throwing a A 3-2 fastball to Willie Wilson. So he's going to stick with the heat, it appears.
Could be the Darryl Strawberry syndrome. Some guys are fast learners. We talked about bat speed. You throw a fastball by a guy like Brett and come back with a hanging curveball, the chances are he's going to have one heck of a swing.
And he struck him out. And did that silence the crowd? The anticipation and then the dead silence.
Reggie Jackson and I were talking about this very thing before the ball game. The easiest pitch for a left-handed hitter to hit off a left-handed pitcher, all things considered equal, is a curveball. And that's why Powder River is usually your best pitch, because you don't give a left-handed hitter a chance to adjust to a pitch, whereas a curveball you do.
So Herzog has opted for Daly to stay in to face White because he knows what kind of stuff Ken has. He has Worrell throwing in the bullpen. And Brett got on. If you look at Herzog, he had Worrell to come in to face the righty if he wanted him here. But Daly throwing so hard, striking out Smith, striking out Brett, and nearly striking Wilson out. Whitey leaves him in to face the right-hand batter. And that's fouled back, right back toward us. 1-1.
Alfalfa, you displayed some tremendous quickness.
I do know how to get under the table. One ball, one strike to count. 2 down, bottom of the 8th inning. 1-0 Cardinals. Wilson at first base.
Just a matter of time, one would think, with 2 out, when Willie Wilson is going to run. Darrell Porter out to talk to Daly now. That also might be one of the reasons that Todd Worrell is not in there with Wilson at first base. Worrell does not have as good a move as the left-hander, and even though Daly hadn't thrown over there, the very fact that he's a left-hander has kept Wilson at first.
Willie thought about going and hesitates, and it's a fly ball to center field and a lot of room for McGee. And we'll go to the 9th inning. Brian Harper driving in the game's only run with a 2-out single in the 8th. At the end of 8, 1-0 St. Louis. Beautiful shot of Royal Stadium, and a reminder tomorrow morning at 10:30 Eastern, and that's 7:30 out on the left coast, the New York City Marathon on ABC. 9th inning, 1-0 Cardinals. Tommy Herr to lead things off against Dan Quisenberry. Herr, Clark, and Landrum. And then in the bottom of the 9th inning, Sheridan is due up. But remember, with Daly in the game, you can forget about Sheridan if Daly stays in. Balboni and Sundberg to follow. Tommy Herr takes outside, ball 1. 1-0 the count. 1 run, 4 hits, and no errors for the Cards. No run, 7 hits, and no errors for the Royals. If the Cardinals do win and don't score more than 1 run here in the 9th inning, they will have gone 53 innings in the World Series with 1 multiple run inning, the 9th in Game 2, and won the World Series, and that's almost impossible.
And they'll be the first team since 1948 to have a player, and that's Tommy Herr, who drove in over 100 during the season and didn't respond during the World Series with an RBI. A lot of weird offensive stats after this series, if it remains the same, of course.
2-1 the count. It's one of those series where the box scores in latter years won't mean anything. That's a broken bat bouncer down to Balboni for the out. What people will remember if this World Series ends tonight are some visual images that have nothing to do with the box scores. Brett going into the dugout would be one, and Lebrand
going into the dugout.
Oh, yes.
Will be another.
Absolutely.
No asterisks to explain that maybe one of the reasons their ball club, talking about Kansas City, got here in the first place was because of the DH, and 17% of their runs were scored by that position. And there's absolutely no help from that position once they got here.
0-1 the count on Clark. 1 out. Bases empty. The Royals certainly have had their chances tonight, and in fact, George Brett has come up in a couple of situations where you want him up and just hasn't produced. 0-2 the count. There is George, who tonight struck out with a man at third in the first inning, so he couldn't bring home Lonnie Smith with 1 out. He opened the 4th inning by flying out. Then he came up with Wilson aboard in the 6th inning and hit into a double play, and they had him up there with Wilson on in the 8th inning. And 1 out, and he struck out. So they've had their chances and haven't cashed. They've left 7. And Clark is down on strike. So there are 2 down, and Landrum is the batter. If the Cardinals win, it would be their 10th World Series championship. And we pointed out earlier this week, only the Yankees have won more, 22. The Royals have never won one. Born in '69, they lost the series in their only other appearance in '80. On the subject of visual images that we'll recall, how about Landrum's performance the first couple of nights? The first 4, in fact.
How about Landrum's throw in Game 2? The 2 plays at the plate. Both very important. Actually, 3 at the plate.
Brett Saberhagen in the dugout.
Oh, yeah.
Asking how Janine is.
That's a little squibber, and Brett lets it roll and falls down. Slipping down, it turns out to be a foul ball. John Tudor, he's so stoic that his performance and his face as you watch Brett fall down doesn't lend itself to remembering through the years Tudor's performance, but what he has done really speaks for itself.
He's worked 15 2/3 innings, and he's 2-0 against the Royals.
One ball, 2 strikes the count. And that's a little number, and Sundberg will have to play this one, throw, and doesn't get him. Landrum beats it out.
Pounds it into the ground. It's going to be a great play by Sundberg, but it also illustrates that Landrum can run. Right on the money. Beats it by a half a step. Make that play much better. You're a catcher.
Now Pendleton, who's base hit with 1 out in the 8th inning, led to the Cardinal run. He singled, Cedeno walked, and then with 2 out and 2 strikes, Harper softly singled to center.
Another running situation for the Cardinals. Going to pick up that extra run. The yardstick almost to see where the runner is going is whether his right foot is out on the carpet. Landrum just about there, but not quite.
Fly ball to center field. Quisenberry does his job, and the Royals have 3 outs in the bottom of the 9th inning to work with. 1-0 St. Louis after 8 1/2. In the bottom of the 9th inning with Ken Daly working for St. Louis, Darrell Motley, the right-hand batter, will lead things off. Then Balboni and Sundberg. In the bullpen, the Cardinals with their two right-handers, Todd Worrell on the left and Jeff Lottie on the right. 1-0 St. Louis. The Cardinals 3 outs away from giving Whitey Herzog a second world championship in 4 seasons. And time is called right now as Herzog, after the announcement is made that Motley is in the game, walks to the mound. And he wants the right-hander. So with Motley in the game, he wanted to make sure he was announced. And he wants Worrell, who struck out the 6 men he faced in Game 5. And we can tell you, since we have a moment, this telecast is presented by authority of Major League Baseball and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of Major League Baseball. Todd Worrell, and the story is well known now, but it's worth repeating under these circumstances. You begin the season in AAA in Louisville, Kentucky, in the American Association as Daly departs, and you're pitching in the minors, and you're not traveling first class or charter, and you're not staying in real good hotels, and you're not eating real good food because your meal money won't cover it. And somebody says in the middle of the season, we want to make you a relief pitcher, and then all of a sudden you get called up in August, and here you are trying to win the World Series. I spoke with him earlier.
In your role right now and the type of pitcher you are, a power pitcher, do you come into the game just seeking an out, or do you come in seeking a strikeout?
It depends on the situation. Being a power pitcher, and especially the situation I was in the last time I pitched in Cardinal Stadium, I wasn't going for strikeouts. You know, we were down 4-1. My main concern was shutting the door on the Royals and trying to give our guys a chance to rally on 3 runs. You know, I really couldn't afford to let them have another 1 or 2 runs, else that, you know, Jackson was pitching a great game. You know, he deserved a lot of credit for his performance, and I knew if they got any farther ahead, we wouldn't catch him because we were late in the game. So I was just trying to shut him down, and the next thing I know, you know, I struck out the side and come out again and did the same thing again.
4-1 behind, 1-0 tonight. Little different situation. We'll see how he handles it.
Meanwhile, George Orta will pinch hit for Motley. So here's an inning that hasn't even started, and we've had 3 changes: a pinch hitter, a new pitcher, and then a pinch hitter for the pinch hitter. Orta looks at a strike on the outer half. Balboni on deck, and then Sundberg. 0-2. Nobody has ever struck out 7 straight over 2 games in the history of the World Series, and Worrell is a strike away from doing that.
Well, he has tremendous poise. You talk about poise, especially about a young pitcher. You're talking about the ability to throw your stuff over the plate. So far in this World Series, all year, he's been able to do it.
Popped foul and curling back out of play to be in about 12 rows. Sparky Anderson, the Tiger manager, interviewing Worrell on Good Morning America the other day, ended the interview, and I loved it. He said, "Todd, thank God you're in the National League, and stay there." Little squibber to the right side. Worrell races over to cover. The throw doesn't get him. Worrell got to the bag in an argument here, and here comes Herzog amongst the other quartet. First base umpire is Denkinger, American League.
Well, this is spring training all over again. Any ball to the right side, get there as quick as you can. I think he tries to go for the ball, and his argument is he gets the side of the bag. Looks like he's out.
From that angle, let's take a look from this one.
Again, Clark with the toss.
Oh, yes.
Right on top of the bag.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt about it.
Only in one person going.
So Orta gets on, and Balboni is at the plate. Balboni has singled, flied out, and walked. You're in a funny situation here, too. Here's your power guy, but in a fun situation, really.
Well, the classic line is you play to win on the road and tie at home, but only, again, the manager's job is to work within the limitations of his player. And I'm not sure if Steve Balboni can bunt.
And the Cardinals don't expect him to. He pops it up in foul ground, and Clark comes over to the dugout with Porter, and Clark doesn't know where he is and can't make the play. And what's happening in the ninth inning, and you can see the shoulder hunch, Clark has spent his whole career in right field. He has made a pretty good adjustment to first base, but he came off the bag, and I'm not saying he made the mistake on a Motley ball, but he's been involved now in the first 2 plays of the ninth inning.
Well, the mistake he makes is looking at Porter. By then, the ball is back over his head. Talked to him before the series. He said he really hasn't felt comfortable at first base, especially on throwing. Here is another example.
0-2, and Balboni trying to hit that one onto the freeway.
And having the capabilities of doing that. We talked about the 96-mile-per-hour fastball. He also has an excellent slider, but he said in this situation, if you're going to get beat, and a home run will beat him, he said you got to go with number 1. Let's see if he does it.
McRae on deck. Base hit into left field. Orta stops at second. Concepcion goes into pinch run. McRae had been out on deck. Now Sundberg returns to the on-deck circle. There is the pinch runner. Herzog has the 2 in the bullpen. Horton, the lefty who took Worrell's place out there, and the right-hander Lottie. So first and second, not only talking to Worrell, but talking about the bunt. He's going to leave him in as they discuss situation here. And McRae had come out on deck to bat for Sundberg. But in this situation, what Hauser is telling you is that Sundberg's a good bunter, and he's going to try to get him along. And he's going to save McRae.
When you do bunt, and if Sundberg's successful, then Whitey can play his little game. They send McRae up. You can walk him. Again, the winning run is at first base.
Clark creeps in. So does Pendleton. Outside. Biancalana due up next.
Well, Tim McCarver has been talking all World Series about the difficulty of bunting on artificial turf. Take a look at the infielders when the pitch goes across home plate. They will be about 15 feet from home plate, trying to get that force at third.
That's outside, and it's 2-0.
You almost want Jim Sundberg to be able to bunt. Hasn't been too many low strikes all night. Into the ball game. If you're Todd Worrell, you want Jim Sundberg to bunt the ball, but sometimes you just can't get the ball over home plate.
He bunts in the air, foul, and Porter can't make the play. And a break for Sundberg as he pops it up back to the screen. And that's one thing about a fastball. Coming in at 92 or 93 miles per hour, you will pop them far back.
Well, especially if it's up in the strike zone. And they tell you, of course, there's conflicting philosophies. If the guy squares around a bunt, he's more apt to pop up the high pitch.
He squares, he bunts to Clark, who lets it roll foul, and the count is 2-2. So Order returns to second, Concepcion to first. Clark that time, you could almost sense it in his mind, wasn't quite sure what he was going to do with it for a second.
Well, another illustration of his inexperience in first place. Excuse me, at first base.
2-2. And now Sundberg really compelled to swing away, though Pendleton remains shallow at third. Now he starts to back up. But he's going to bunt with 2 strikes. Lays it down. Worrell looks at third, throws, and gets him on a close play at third. And that couldn't be any closer. So the play goes 1-5, 1 out. Orta comes off, and McRae will come up.
Not a very good bunt, almost right back to Worrell, who breaks the wrong way. Again, no hesitation.
Good ball. Jim McKean, American League, calling that one.
Once again, not by much, but he was out.
All right, now McRae. The designated hitter pinch hits for Biancalana. Cal came up the other night and grounded out with the bases loaded in St. Louis. 1-0.
I wonder if Cal, coming up off Tudor the other night, swinging a very low pitch, bases loaded, is going to try to be a little more selective.
That gets away from Porter, and the runners move up. The ruling, so second and third, the tying run at third, the winning run at second. Porter with Worrell in the count 2-0.
As I said, maybe they did get their signs mixed up. Looked like Porter's looking fastball.
And you can see the 4 fingers held up by Hal Lanier, indicating he doesn't have to hold up 4, he only has to hold up 2 because the count's already 2-0. So they'll walk McRae, and Dean Orge is out on deck to pinch hit. This is some boring World Series, isn't it?
Comes up, will Herzog come out?
Whitey, back to Lanier, Mike Rourke, trainer Gene Gieselman. Lanier signaling to the infielders as they align themselves here. Orge, a Cardinal in the 1982 World Series, and he had a terrific World Series.
5:59.
Double play depth short and second and up at the corners. And there it is visually for you.
The play is if it's hit the first or third, you're coming home. To get the tying run, it's hit to the middle infielders. Most likely they'll try for two unless the only play they have is at the plate.
Concepcion at third. Sundberg at second. And it's low, ball one. John Watson is the runner at first base running for McRae. He's important too because a force play, there he is. A force at second could be a big play. And that's a looper hitting the right field for a base hit. Concepcion scores. Here comes Sundberg. Here's the throw. He scores. We go to a 7th.
Dane Orge, for me, please describe your attitude and describe your feeling about the base hit.
Well, I'll tell you exactly what went through my mind. It's how many kids get an opportunity to hit in that situation. I've dreamed about that all my life, and to be up there and to actually go through it was a thrill.
I will say that you might have thought about being a kid or thought about kids, but you certainly did a man's job. What happened to your nose?
Well, Mike Jones came right on the pile and drilled me in the nose and bloodied my nose, but I'll take it anytime I can get a hit like that.
Take a bloody nose like that all the time?
Anytime.
Dick Hauser, please tell me about your Kansas City Royals. They just seem to keep coming back.
That's unbelievable. Reggie, you know, Charlie pitched one of his better games again. I was going to say he was snake bit, but he really wasn't. He kept us in there. He pitched a heck of a ball game. Nobody's out-pitched us in this series, and when we got down to the last inning, we had some old pros over there. George Arda, Hal McRae, Dane Orge, and a few more. Lynn Jones. So we were only down one run. We had our, we weren't in bad shape, really.
Dick, tell me about your decision to leave in Charlie Lee Brandt.
Yeah, it's just he's pitching so good, Reggie. Guys, you send a pinch hitter up there. They did it. They got a base hit with 2 outs, but the way Charlie's pitching, we're going to win the ball game with Charlie Lee Brandt. He did a great job. If you send somebody up there to hit, that's no guarantee he's going to get a base hit.
Let me ask you this. What do you think about tomorrow now with all the excitement of today? Can you get any higher?
Reggie, that's the way it's supposed to be. Brett Saberhagen and John Tudor, 2 20-game winners. It'll be a great ball game.
Thank you very much, Dick Hauser. Thank you very much, Dane Orge. Fantastic, my friend. Tell me this. You felt snake bit. You were having some problems. You just couldn't seem to get a break. You were sitting up in the clubhouse watching. I was in the clubhouse. You were the only guy that was absolutely quiet until one time you yelled. Mention that to me.
Well, we just have had so many bad breaks in this series. We just haven't seemed to come up with a clutch hit or the clutch pitching. I know I pitched well, but I just haven't been able to come up with a clutch out late in the ball game. And we certainly did it tonight. I think the thing has turned around for us, and we got a couple of clutch hits to start the inning off, and Dane Archer's just terrific. And we're going to savor this one and come out and play as hard as we can tomorrow night.
I guess you can finally say that the Kansas City Royals have deserved one, Al. What more can you say? Momentum? Let's go back to Al.
All we can say is that the baseball season will end tomorrow.